Dear city dwellers and city visitors, this year Yekaterinburg is celebrating the 285th anniversary from the day of its foundation. 255 years of a glorious history and great achievements, thousands and thousands of facts of the past and the present, both being known, remembered and spoken about.
Помнить, говорить.
For a long time, Yekaterinburg has been developing as an industrial scientific city. Today, we want Yekaterinburg to become a city for people, a city which is comfortable to live and to work in. The anniversary film, which we call attention to, comprises only a small number of these facts, but it reveals the main thing. The film gives you the keys to understanding your city. It reveals the uniqueness of Yekaterinburg, the city with amazing past and brilliant future.
Yekaterinburg, from 1924 to 1991, Sverdlovsk is a city in Russia, the administrative center of Sverdlovsk region and the Ural Federal Area. The population is 1,346,000 people. It's the fourth largest city in Russia after Moscow, St. Petersburg, and Novosibirsk. It is situated on the eastern slope of the Middle Urals on the banks of the Syet River. In the western part of the city, there's a boundary between Europe and Asia. It's a large transport and logistic junction on the Trans-Siberian Highway, and the biggest industrial, cultural, and educational center of the Urals. Do you know that the most ancient wooden idol on Earth, Shigirsky idol, is kept in Yekaterinburg? It is 9,000 years old. Its torso is covered with an enigmatic ornament, hiding the secrets of ancient inhabitants of the Urals, over which the best scientific minds from all over the world are racking their brains. The first English machines were made of Ural iron. Demidov's iron protected the building of the English Parliament and Notre Dame de Paris from bad weather. Ural steel was used to build the Eiffel Tower, and Ural copper to erect the Statue of Liberty in New York. The U-2 reconnaissance plane of an American spy, Francis Gary Powers, which illegally intruded into the airspace of the USSR, was brought down with an air-to-ground missile over Sverdlovsk. The spy pilot was apprehended by 4 Khalkhaz workers, the inhabitants of the village Kasulino. Powers showed a note to them, "I'm American and I don't speak Russian. If you help me, you'll be rewarded for this." The apprehended person also had 7,500 rubles, golded coins, and a pin with the Kurari kernel. The most famous stepping excavator was manufactured in Yekaterinburg. The creation of a renowned Uralmash factory, the gigantic model ESH 100-100, had a bucket 100 cubic meters in size. One bucket of this excavator can load 2 railway cars. In 1745, a farmer, Yerofey Markov, finds gold under Yekaterinburg, and Yekaterinburg resounds around the world as a new El Dorado. A gold rush comes to the city where gold is almost underfoot. Luxurious mansions and estates are being built. The wedding of Zotov's son and Ryazanov's daughter is considered to be the summit of squander and spree. The wedding lasted for 1 year, offering entertainment, food, and drinks for all comers. Faces, people, stones, houses. Streets, years, events, facts. Anybody who shows you around the city will be saying what he thinks. You shouldn't expect neutrality and fullness. The city has lived long and experienced a lot. And after that, you will leave taking a set of odd reminiscences with you and the feeling, I've seen this city. However, seeing and understanding are not the same. Here are the keys, a ring of keys. These are the keys to the city. Of course, in a metaphorical meaning. We've taken them out of this tower, we'll drop them in there later. the keys to the city, to understand, to see it right, and never confuse it with any other city. This is what I'm going to do, to give you the keys. The Urals were known even to the ancient Greeks. Herodotus, Aeschylus, and Plato wrote about the Rif, Hyperbore, or just the Great North Mountains. The Ural Mountains, according to the world models of many nations, is the center of the earth, the world mountain. Mahabharata mentions the Great Mountain Range, Meru, the axis of the universe. And the Bashkirian myths which have come to the present times tell us about Uralbatır, bringing the echo of biblical and even more ancient Sumer legends. Year 1721. The commander of the Ural factories, Captain Vasily Tatyashev, on the instruction of Peter I, is carefully choosing the place to found the city. The micro-location of the city is determined by the necessity to build a dam for a big factory. This is the beginning of our city, the renowned Platinka. The mesolocation must assist in fulfilling the administrative functions. These are the prerequisites for the future capital. Macro-location, being situated on the boundary of the parts of the world, the city must become the gate to Asia, similar to St. Petersburg's window to Europe. The idea of putting the boundary between Europe and Asia along the watershed of the Ural Mountains was offered by the Swedish scientist Philip Johann Stratenberg in 1730. It was suggested to Stratenberg by Vasily Tatyashev during the scientist's stay in Yekaterinburg. Yekaterinburg is the only million city in the world which lies on the land frontier between Europe and Asia, stretched along the watershed. Over 80% of Russian copper coins were minted at the Mint of Yekaterinburg during the 150 years of its existence. Yekaterinburg is the only city in Russia which in the 19th century had a peculiar status of a mining city, a kind of a state in a state. Within its territory there were its own laws, court, and even its own military force. All these institutions obeyed the god and tsar of the factory area, General Glinka, who in his turn obeyed directly the emperor. Typical Russian souvenirs are a malachite box. Could you show this candlestick to me, please? A little lizard. And that very same lizard is now in the role of the mistress of the Copper Mountain, with all the Ural semi-precious stones at her feet. The lad was about uttering a word when suddenly he was as if he'd been hit at the back of his head. Holy Mother, this is the mistress herself. You see, he's heard from the old men that the mistress, that Malachite woman, likes philosophizing over the people. She'll give the flower to the person she takes note of, and right away another flower will appear in her hand. A sudden outbreak of genius took place here in Yekaterinburg in 1937. Pavel Petrovich Bazhov, a 56-year-old Soviet journalist who worked much on the ideologically adjusted revolutionary topics, is now expelled from the party, deprived of work, and being almost locked in this very house, suddenly creates the main book of his life, the main book of the Urals, the collected tales, the Malachite box. It's inexplicable that Bazhov alone created a myth which now lets us, today's inhabitants of the Ural mountain range, feel that we are a unique, peculiar, rooted into the past and living in the present people. The city is pierced through with the signs of Bazhov's myth. Greece is presented by Homer, Chalkid by Shota Rustaveli. The Malachite box presents to the world the ore Urals, the stone belt, the stone mountain range, the stone bridge between Europe and Asia, between the present and the past. Bazhov is our Ural Tolkien. We suddenly find an ancient history seemingly invented, but now almost real. The fact is that the author's myth by Bazhov didn't appear from a vacuum place. The place is not a vacuum and is not simple. The Russian people, as far back as in the 16th century, determined the borderline according to the stone. This was the name of the Ural Mountains at that time, between Moscowia and Siberia, with the stone in the middle. It's told that there is the only one stone. There's no such stone anywhere else, not only throughout our lands, but also in foreign lands. Nobody has ever found that stone, and the rumor about it is everywhere. But still, this little stone is in our country. Our old men have ascertained that. The keystone, the key of the land, and the origins of this myth are even deeper. The World Mountain, located in the center of the earth. Many nations have considered this model of the world since ancient times. Tutishev builds his factory in a non-accidental and already labeled place. Bajov unites folklore, history, geography, and creates a new Ural mythology, offering to the world the Malachite box of the Urals, one of the most unusual places on earth, millennial prehistory of which resumed with the birth of Yekaterinburg. This is the first key to understanding this city. In 1733, Yekaterinburg was visited by the participants of the Second Kamchatka expedition with Vitus Bering, a well-known navigator and discoverer, at the head. Later, on Kamchatka, the Ural experts made anchors, boilers, and cannons for the expedition. In 1790, on his way to Siberian exile, the writer-democrat Alexander Radishev, the author of a forbidden book, The Journey from St. Petersburg to Moscow, went past Yekaterinburg. In 1824, the city was visited by the Emperor Alexander I, who saw the mint lapidary factory, the gold smelting laboratory, Verkhesiet, Beryozovsk, and Pishma factories, and also a factory hospital in the Novotekvin nunnery. In 1829, Alexander von Humboldt came to Yekaterinburg. He was a German scientist, encyclopedist, physicist, meteorologist, geographer, botanist, zoologist, and traveler. Humboldt investigated the allocation of mineral resources and advised how to improve the work on gold and platinum mines. In 1890, Anton Pavlovich Chekhov visited Yekaterinburg on his way to Sakhalin. In 1899, the participants of a scientific expedition with Dmitry Ivanovich Mendeleev at the head visited the city. It's impossible to understand any city of Russia without a key. Most likely, the 21st century is going to be the century of understanding the experiment which took place in Russia in the 20th century. The name of this experiment, of this key to understanding the city, is communism. Thus, Yekaterinburg, Sverdlovsk, Yekaterinburg. A great experiment. The communist idea of building a new society of universal equality and brotherhood was an unprecedented aim which captured millions of minds. We will destroy the world of violence up to the base, and after that, our own new world we will build. The author of the Russian text of International anthem, Arkady Kots, lived in Sverdlovsk for the last 2 years of his life. He translated the original French text of International into Russian in 1902, being, as he writes, deeply impressed by the great music. A badly famed house of the mining engineer Ipatiev, where in 1918 the last Russian Emperor Nikolai and his family were shot, has been destroyed. On that place, a 5-domed church has been built, the Church on the Blood. At the entrance, there is a monument to the Romanovs as they were going down the spiral stairs into the basement to be shot. In the ground rooms of the church, there is a spot marking the place where that basement room was, riddled with bullets, with the sign on the wall. At the same night, Balthazar was murdered by his villains. Ganin's Pit is an abandoned mine located in the deformed place The Four Brothers, not far from the village Koptyaki near Yekaterinburg. It's famous for being the place where, after being shot, the bodies of the Tsar Nikolai II and his family were brought to and thrown into the mine. Today at Ganin's Pit, there is a monastery in honor of Saint Tsar Passion Sufferers, the symbol of repentance of our people in the sin of apostasy, the symbol of rebirth of the Orthodox Church in Russia. About how our last Tsar abdicated, about how he and his family were taken away to Tobolsk and then to Yekaterinburg, how the White Army was approaching, and how the order to execute by shooting was issued. About all these you'll hear at the numerous excursions around the present-day Yekaterinburg. But we are speaking about the keys to understanding, therefore 2 sketchings. 30 April 1918. At the railway station, a crowd is meeting the train with the Tsar's family. The guards can't hold the people back on the platform. The screams, "We must strangle them. At last, they're in our hands." 16 July 2003, a solemn consecration of the Church on the Blood in the name of all saints who have shown their grace throughout Russia. An enormous gathering of people, celebration, brightened faces. So as to the keys, if you don't always realize this distance between the Russian people in the first episode and the Russians in the second one, perhaps you won't be able to understand either our country or our people or our city. In 1933, after a large-scale building on one of the suburbs of Sverdlovsk, a factory of factories was put into operation, Uralmash, a huge engineering and manufacturing complex capable of producing the machines of any scale and any complexity. The father of factories and plants, as Maxim Gorky called Uralmash. The industrial giant demanded tens of thousands of workers, so while the factory was being erected, a new town of Uralmash was being built. The unique architectural complex in a contemporary to that time style of constructivism. Constructivism is a trend in architecture in the 20s of the 20th century which puts forward the idea of constructing the material surroundings of a person. Constructivism in Sverdlovsk gives birth to a peculiar mythology of the city. Thus, the Hotel Isyet and Chekhistown make up Sickle and Hammer. The Ural Technical University has the shape of a plane, and the building of the main post office somehow reminds of a tractor. The present-day Yekaterinburg really deserves to be the preserve of constructivism. No other city managed to preserve so many buildings of this unusual style. In 1928, Sverdlovsk was visited by Vladimir Mayakovsky. Impressed by the large number of gigantic-scale building sites, he writes the following lines. From the snow blinding shine, from the mixed-up branches and needles, suddenly rises with the houses of Sverdlovsk a new city, a worker and warrior. Half skyscrapers like a forest were raised to wash the evenings in electricity, and close to it, mushroom hole, infernal regions as if the city didn't have today and only yesterday and tomorrow. Russia of the 20th century seized with very diverse ideas, which are projected onto the rest of the world immediately. And now the 40s, the World War, in which we are in the center. As it always happens in such cases, the main, the all-absorbing for the Russian person idea appears, the idea of defending the motherland, perhaps the most undeniable idea of the last century. During the years 1941 to 1942, all industrial power was shifted to the east, and the Urals became the largest point of industrial evacuation. Izhorsky factory was placed in the territory of Uralmash. Kiev factory was a base for Uralkhimash. Kiev Red Rubberer and Moscow India Rubber made up the foundation of the Sverdlovsk tire factory. The following factories were evacuated to Sverdlovsk: Optic Mechanical Factory number 217, today's Ural Optic Mechanical Factory, Kiev Radio Factory, today's NPO Automatics, the machine building factory named after Kalinin, Turbine Motor Factory. As a result, the industrial complex of the Middle Urals has increased industrial production by 7 times. The Hermitage was saved in Yekaterinburg. During the war years, it was accepted and placed here, and 1,117 invaluable displays were saved. Leonardo da Vinci, Raphael, Titian, Rubens, Rembrandt, Velázquez, sculptures by Goudon, Canova, and monuments of the Greek and Roman sculpture. In 1943, the President of the USA, Franklin Roosevelt, on his way to the conference in Tehran, stayed in Sverdlovsk for a whole day. The design office of Bokhovitinov, where the first jetliner B-1 was produced, was also evacuated to Sverdlovsk. In August 1941, a squadron leader, Grigory Bakhchivandzhi, was summoned from the battlefront for testing. 27 March 1943. During the regular testing, Bakhchivandzhi, on board of a pursuit plane B-1, made 800 kilometers per hour. At that time, people came close to the sound barrier for the first time, and there was a first victim on the way to its overcoming. Grigory Bakhchivandzhi was posthumously given the rank of the Hero of the Soviet Union. The after-war history of Russia is a period of unprecedented growth, the period when it seems that the USSR was really able to overtake and leave behind America and therefore the whole world. And it seemed so not only to the people here, but also to many people in the West. Sverdlovsk-Yekaterinburg is oversaturated with resources: industrial, scientific, recruiting, the ascent of arts, theater, cinema, music, economic growth, a successful space program, defense power, just another chance. The Soviet defense industry. Used to talk about Yekaterinburg-Sverdlovsk of the second part of the 20th century, this phrase becomes the main term of the city. The city is considered closed, and everything that happens in it is a strategical secret. Sverdlovsk becomes the object number 3 in case of nuclear bombing by the force of NATO. The numbers of foreigners and their slightest moving around the city are thoroughly recorded. The Ural branch of the Russian Academy of Sciences is world-renowned. Versman, Bardin, Timofeyev, Rozovsky, Krasovsky, Subbotin, hundreds of brilliant minds have made Yekaterinburg one of the acknowledged centers of the present civilization. Do you know that the German firm W. Sauer considers its child, the organ of the Sverdlovsk Philharmonie, installed in 1973, one of the best in Europe? In 1955, Ho Chi Minh, the leader of Vietnamese proletariat, came to Sverdlovsk. The same year, the city was visited by the Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru, and his daughter Indira Gandhi. In 1956, the government delegation of the Korean People's Democratic Republic arrived in Sverdlovsk with the Kim Il-sung at the head. In 1959, a visit of the Vice President of the USA, Richard Nixon, took place. In 1963, Fidel Castro was on a visit to Sverdlovsk. Boris Yeltsin, a world-famous figure. He was born in a village Budka in Sverdlovsk region in a family of farmers. After finishing school, he entered the Ural State Technical University, which is now named after him. As a result of his breathtaking career, finding himself first a secretary of regional committee, the main person in Sverdlovsk region, and then in 1991, the president of the Russian Soviet Federal Socialist Republic, this man, as fate willed, being at the head of a new Russia, put an end to the existence of a Soviet state. So, the great experiment, the second key to understanding this city, finding ideals, their debunking and loss, a spiritual vacuum, and finding new ideals. This is the way of Russia in the 20th century. The fate of the country is concentrated in the fate of one city, Yekaterinburg, Sverdlovsk, Yekaterinburg. Many people search for the key to solve the puzzle of the Russian soul. Probably this key can also be used here.
In 2002, according to the International Center of Future Problems Investigation, Yekaterinburg was declared to be one of the 12 ideal cities of the world. The capital of the Urals is on a level with Tokyo, New York, Singapore, Rio de Janeiro, and Stockholm. In 2003, Yekaterinburg was awarded with the decoration The Glory of Russia for achievements in fulfilling the program of the city services development and also for successful meeting the challenge of the small and middle-scale business.
In the years 2002 and 2005, Yekaterinburg was twice a winner of the all-Russian contest of economic growth in Russia, the Golden Ruble, in the nomination The Best City of the Russian Federation, according to the economic indexes among the regional centers of the subjects of federation. All the factory cities in the Urals were built on a dammed-up river. What is a dam? On that side, there's a pond, water, a supply of energy. On this side, there's machinery, wheels, gear wheels set in motion by the water falling down from the top. Here, the energy transforms into the yield. Let's go down inside the dam and have a look. Right under me, you can see the gate of the dam, Platinka, as it's called in Yekaterinburg. And only this part holds back the enormous power of water collected in the city pond. And now the last key to understanding this city. The thing which is there above in front of the dam is our history, our past, everything that we have inherited from our ancestry. The potential resource of the enormous industrial city, the spiritual strength of the people in the Urals, the owners of the Malachite box, the opportunities arising due to the unique location of this city, the center of the continent. Open the gate and the water will flow down, and what is possible will become real, and time will start working for us. The city is up to date. Up to date means that it interacts with the date, with the time. Here, now, in its newest history, it is experiencing unprecedented growth, realizing the opportunities which have been accumulated throughout the centuries. The Consulate Generals of the USA, Great Britain, Germany, the Czech Republic, and France. The consulates of Austria, Bulgaria, Italy, the Visa Application Center of Spain. In total, almost 2 dozens of consulate institutions. The center of the continent, the center of a huge industrial region. International transport and telecommunication connections. All these are undeniable advantages of the city. Photographers have the most difficult task because they try to capture the visual appearance of the city. The street which you went along just a month ago can have you in shock with its sudden changes. The city is growing, changing before our eyes. A building boom. Something similar but differently, in its own way, already happened here 100 years ago, during the period of the Ural El Dorado. Yekaterinburg is a city of contrasts, at least in architecture. There's an old merchant mansion of the 19th century and a business house of the 21st century. Life is seething, and we are inside of this stream of time, contemporaries. Ural rock music became famous in the middle of the 80s. Reflexion, Nautilus Pompilius, Chaif, Nastia, Agatha Christie, and Orange March. Classical Sverdlovsk rock music has never been ranting and raving, and has shunned heart-boiling, preferring to make music but not to try to self-express in it. Here it is, the eternal image of a passenger. Monthly, 8 million passengers pass through the railway station of Yekaterinburg. That's equal to 6 Yekaterinburgs. Besides, only in our city can you get on the city train and go several stops, right through the city along the longest railway on the planet, the famous Transsib. Thus, the third key to this city. It shows us the modern, changing, growing Yekaterinburg, the city where the possibilities are fulfilled. Do you remember Mayakovsky said, as if the city didn't have today and only tomorrow and yesterday. For a long time we have been living in a bright tomorrow. Now this city has got today. Probably this is because something is changing inside of us. The city sculptures. Not big, but creating a special mood and being close, in a direct sense, to the citizens walking along the streets. They gain legends quickly. If you rub the finger ring of the banker, you'll certainly become rich. If you touch the bottle of perfume on the hawker's tray, your secret wish will come true. The air gate between Europe and Asia. The international airport Koltsova, the most rapidly developing airport in Russia. Over 30 Russian and foreign airlines connect Yekaterinburg with more than 100 cities of the world, and through the convenient points of change, the international hub airports, with almost the whole planet. Investing into the capital of the Urals, doing business on the boundary of Europe and Asia, is getting easier and more effective. It has already been appreciated by Raiffeisenbank, Societe Generale East, Citibank, OB, Auchan, IKEA, McDonald's, Metro, and Ramstor, financial, trade, and industrial enterprises of East and West. And if investors can offer the economy of the city their financial resources, the city is ready to reply to them with rapid development. Yekaterinburg, having been started as a window to Asia, is truly a window today. Now it's a traditional place for holding major international events. In 2003, the Russian-German Summit of the year 2003, the European Asian Law Congress of the year 2007, the Summit of the Shanghai Organization of Commonwealth in the summer of 2009. The capital of the Urals can hold the largest international events. Yekaterinburg is a city of vast opportunities to spend free time. Even the wide term industry of entertainment doesn't exhaust its diversity. An ancient cultural life, theater, circus, cinema, museums, zoo park, aqua park, nightlife, clubs, casinos, restaurants, and also sightseeing tours around the city and its outskirts. Horse trips, falconry, mountain skiing, renowned Russian baths. Look for what you like, according to your interests, temperament, tastes, scope of view. This unique city on the boundary of Europe and Asia is a bottomless box of opportunities. In the beginning, Yekaterinburg developed as a factory city. First as a center of metallurgy, later as a center of heavy engineering. Only at the end of the last century, the approach to the idea of the city itself began to change. The city for people, a comfortable city. By an initiative of the head of Yekaterinburg, a strategic plan of the city development was scheduled in 2003, approved by the Municipal Duma. The main aim of this strategy of the city of Yekaterinburg was to provide the present day and future generations of citizens with a rather high and a steadily rising quality of life. The city is the Malachite box of the past. The city is a great experiment for the sake of the future. The city becoming aware of its present. The 3 keys to understanding this city. Now is the very time to go along its streets, listen to the guides, or just live here. By the way, don't forget to buy souvenirs, the Malachite box or the little lizard. The details and small points will gradually gather into united, complete picture called Yekaterinburg. And you'll want to come back here, because you've got the keys to it.